4 earthquakes a day. That's the reality when your country sits at the collision point of 4 tectonic plates. Japan records more than 1,500 felt earthquakes every single year. It is the most seismically active nation on Earth. Yet 125 million people don't just survive here. They have built an entire civilization around the certainty that the ground will shake again. It all starts with what's happening beneath the surface. Far beneath the ocean floor, the Japanese archipelago sits directly atop a geological collision zone. Here, the massive Pacific plate thrusts downward beneath the Okhotsk plate, while the Philippine Sea plate slides under the Eurasian plate. Where these colossal forces meet off the east coast of central Honshu, they form the Bozo Triple Junction, a rare trench intersection that generates continuous extreme stress. Rather than random shifting, this relentless grinding forces the Earth to bend, warp, and slip. This movement transfers immense pressure directly into the islands above. When the rock finally ruptures to release the stored energy, the result is immediate shaking. For the cities built on this shifting foundation, the primary challenge is not predicting when the next rupture will occur, but engineering a society that can withstand an environment in perpetual motion. Japanese structural engineering abandons the traditional idea of rigid resistance, designing buildings that slide and sway with the moving earth. At the base of modern towers, laminated lead-rubber bearings act as heavy shock absorbers, separating the structure from violent ground motion. This base isolation system works alongside diagonal, energy-dissipating steel braces and heavy viscous fluid dampers, similar to the devices visible on Tokyo's Rainbow Bridge, to dissipate structural stress throughout the frame. Near the rooftops of skyscrapers, massive tuned mass dampers slide in opposition to the wind and earth, dampening the natural sway. Engineers at the Building Research Institute and the University of Tokyo Earthquake Research Institute analyze post-event data to continuously refine these systems to protect critical public services. To validate these designs, researchers at the E-Defense facility in Miki subject full-scale 10-story structures to simulated magnitude 9 ground motion on the world's largest shake table. These tests confirm that base-isolated structures reduce peak floor acceleration by over 60%. This methodology focuses on preventing collapse while ensuring hospitals, emergency centers, and civic infrastructure remain fully operational the moment the shaking stops. Seismic resilience in Japan extends from structural engineering directly into the classroom. Here, earthquake preparedness begins in early childhood, transforming survival into a quiet, lifelong reflex. When the warning siren sounds, students do not run or cry out under the familiar instruction to drop, cover, and hold on. Children calmly retreat beneath their desks, clutching the wooden frames until the shaking stops. This constant repetition, practiced throughout the school year, builds muscle memory designed to override instinctual fear. By treating readiness as a basic part of daily education, these classrooms turn potential panic into structured calm, ensuring the next generation is ready long before the ground ever moves. The moment a fault ruptures, a race against physics begins. The Japan Meteorological Agency operates a highly sensitive network of seismographs designed to catch the very first sign of an earthquake, the fast-moving primary wave, or P wave. These harmless compression waves travel far ahead of the slower, highly destructive shear waves that cause violent shaking. By detecting this initial signal instantly, the agency's system calculates the epicenter, estimates the magnitude, and broadcasts an automated alert across the national J-Alert network within seconds. Before the ground even moves, smartphones in the target zone blare a distinct high-pitched alarm. Across the country, automated safety systems react instantly. On high-speed rail lines, JR East's control systems trigger emergency brakes, slowing bullet trains traveling 300 kilometers an hour before the physical shock waves reach the tracks. Elevators automatically stop at the nearest floor to release passengers, and heavy factory machinery halts to prevent damage. Ultimately, this warning system buys a precious window of survival, rather than absolute certainty. While 5 to 20 seconds of lead time cannot protect buildings, it is enough to save lives. Inside Japanese homes, the domestic environment functions as a reliable line of defense. Families treat the emergency survival kit as a standard household object, often stored near the front entrance. Inside, a 3-day supply of water, non-perishable food, first aid materials, and a battery-powered radio site ready for immediate use. Alongside emergency supplies, everyday safety dictates the interior layout of the living space. Heavy bookshelves, wardrobes, and kitchen cabinets are anchored securely to the walls. When the early warning sounds, these quiet, practical precautions prevent heavy items from falling, ensuring that the household remains a safe sanctuary during the violent shaking. This collective readiness is built on a shared cultural understanding. The word jushin represents an accepted parameter of daily life, met with bosai, the active practice of disaster prevention woven into ordinary social routines. Rather than viewing seismic threats with fatalism, residents maintain a posture of quiet, practical awareness. This civic habit, sustained through generations, makes safety a collective responsibility. Neighbors cooperate through local associations, maintaining shared neighborhood resources and checking on vulnerable residents. Preparation becomes a quiet, normal rhythm, transforming vulnerability into a shared source of community strength. On March 11, 2011, the limits of this collective strength were tested on a scale never before seen in modern history. Off the northeast coast of Tohoku, a massive magnitude 9.1 earthquake ruptured the seabed, triggering a colossal tsunami that surged toward the shoreline. In coastal towns like Rikuzentakata and Miyako, the first sign of danger was a hushed, unsettling silence as the sea suddenly retreated, exposing the ocean floor, a terrifying prelude to the waves that followed. Seawalls designed to withstand historic surges were overtopped by water that climbed as high as 40 meters. In those moments, the physical boundaries of engineering became clear. Yet as the water eventually receded, leaving behind displaced families and altered coastlines, the quiet, persistent work of recovery began. For the survivors of Tohoku, survival was an active, daily choice that continued long after the ground stopped moving. Neighbors who had practiced local evacuations for generations immediately began organizing shelters, distributing supplies, and mapping out safer routes on higher ground. Instead of simply restoring what was lost, rebuilding meant adapting to a new reality. Giant new seawalls rose along the coast, and communities relocated entire residential districts to high hillsides. This long recovery showed that in Japan, survival means standing up, adapting, and finding the resolve to build again in an environment of perpetual threat. Each catastrophic rupture in Japan directly shapes the next generation of defense. Following the 1923 Great Kanto earthquake, the nation introduced its first seismic provisions, establishing early, reinforced concrete standards. 7 decades later, the 1995 Great Hanshin earthquake exposed structural vulnerabilities in older buildings, accelerating a national push for retrofits and safety upgrades for critical facilities. When the 2011 disaster struck, it forced another wave of legislative updates, tightening land use planning and refining evacuation routes. Yet, these national policies only succeed because they are sustained at the grassroots. Local neighborhood associations, or chonakai, translate government codes into neighborhood drills, maintaining local supply warehouses and checking on vulnerable residents. This systematic loop of learning from past failures defines Japan's true resilience. This institutional memory materializes in the quiet details of daily life. Walking through a Tokyo suburb, the architecture of readiness is woven directly into the background. Municipal stockpile centers sit unmarked between houses, storing rotated food and medical supplies. Underneath local bridges, heavy steel damping devices are left fully exposed, flexing slightly with the city's weight. Even standard mail deliveries include updated hazard maps sent directly to every door. To a visitor, these elements are invisible. To a resident, they are a quiet baseline of safety, proving that the best defense is simply part of the scenery. We cannot stop the Earth from moving, but in learning to bend instead of break, Japan proves that humanity's greatest shield is our capacity to adapt. In an unpredictable world, their quiet resilience is a blueprint for us all. Join the conversation below.